You're listening to the Current Plays Podcast, Season 3, Episode 12, Warhammer Underworlds. Now please welcome your hosts, Jordan and Thomas. And welcome back, our warmongering listeners. This week we are talking Warhammer Underworlds, which is would you say somewhere between a board game and a tabletop war game kind of thing?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, board game with miniatures, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
they call
yeah.
it,
Hard to, yeah.
I think, arena combat.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a good descriptor for sure.
it's designed by David Sanders and published by Games Workshop, of course, being a Warhammer game. We have talked about this one before, one of our more popular episodes, actually,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Anything
for
Warhammer,
quite a
right?
while.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The nice thing about this one is you can do it with just a small number of miniatures, right? But
yeah.
now I'm getting into the description of the game. I'll pass it over to you since it was your pick this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So this will be kind of a quick explanation because it's not a super complex game. For whatever reason, I always find it hard to wrap my mind around this one, and it takes me a few like rounds before I'm like, oh, okay, I finally understand. But essentially, what you're doing is you're taking a small war band, and you're traversing the underworlds or wherever the maps happen to be, right? So you set up the game. The game's based on hex based grids. So typically you have two map boards that you'll put together, and there's rules on how you can put them together. Either you can put them together sort of on the short ends, the rectangular boards, or the long ends, or you can offset them to a degree as long as a number of hexes are created out of the connection. Blah, blah, blah. Not important. But essentially, you'll set this board up. You'll set some tokens that represent the various kind of unique spots on the board that are going to be oh, what's the term for those?
The
Uh,
objectives?
Objectives. Thank you. Yeah, objective markers. So similar how you'd have objective markers in a war game that you'd be taking over. This time they take a spot as a hex on a board. And then there's various, things to interact with well, less interact, but to deal with that are on the board. So there's some cover hexes, there's some, stealth hexes and damage hexes. I forget the exact names for those, but that's essentially how the map gets set up. It's very quick. You don't need any sort of, wargaming terrain, walls or buildings or ruins or anything like that. And then yeah, you set up your war band on the starting hexes of these maps, and the game's played over 3 rounds, each round consisting of 4 turns each. So you will take a turn each till you each get 4 turns, and you try to score objective cards, of which your hand usually will have 3 for a round, or well, I mean, that's how you win the game is by completing these objectives or eliminate sort of your opponent. And anytime you can destroy one of your opponent's models, you'll get what's called a bounty, which is another way of getting victory points. So between the objective cards, completing those and getting victory points, and collecting these bounties, at the end of 3 rounds, whoever's collected the most glory points, which are the victory points, is the winner. And that's essentially how the game plays, right? To kind of dig a little bit deeper, but like I said, because we already had an episode about this, I don't want to go into get too much into the weeds. But the game is set up on your turn. You're going to have an action phase, and then you'll have a power step. The action phase is going to consist of, some sort of either just a movement or a charge. We're going to move and attack, or just an attack, or drawing a new objective and discarding one of the objectives, or drawing more power cards. After your action phase, you will have a power step where you will alternate playing some of those power cards, you draw a hand of five at the start of a round. So this power step was we're going to play some of those. Some of those might be actually reactions as well that will play during various times of the turn as well. So it's kind of like this back and forth. Okay, I have this action phase. Now we go for a power step, then back to the top of the action phase with the opponent, and then their power step, and back and forth until you've finished an entire round, and then kind of reset, go again, and hopefully by the end of it you still have models left, but more importantly you've completed many of your objectives, which usually will score in two ways, either at the end of a round or during kind of these surge steps that are part of the action and part of the power steps. So those ones typically will have some sort of, if you're able to do this and this, then you can immediately score these during a surge step. So as soon as you reach that goal, you say, okay, I've completed this goal. And then, you know, you essentially will get glory points versus some of the ones that score at the end of a round. Sometimes you'll be set up for one, and then throughout the round, something will happen. And right before you score it at the end of the round, the the board will change, and you'll be like, ah, I didn't complete this anymore
Yeah.
because of the last thing, right? So yeah, there's kind of two types. The surge ones are nice because you can complete them, but typically they're a little. I don't want to say they're always more difficult, but some of them can be more difficult because you can complete them right away. Versus the end game ones, depending on how many points they score you, can be fairly easy to accomplish or pretty difficult, right? For example, in our game, kind of the last round, and we'll talk about this more, I had one that I had to destroy your leader, and then I had to, and there also had to be four other fighters that were out of the game, basically, so had died somewhere in that game. And if I could do that by the end of the round, then I would get three victory points. So three glory points. So three glory points, quite a lot of points. I think that's the max you can get on an objective card. Whereas typically, if you're destroying and earning a bounty, you're usually only getting one um, glory point. Or if you're completing some of the other objectives, some of them are only one objective, one glory point, or some of them are two and very rarely three, right? And degrees of difficulties as you get more and more glory points there, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the game in a nutshell, though. It's fairly easy. As you're doing these things, you're rolling dice to for the combat. So it's similar in the sense, if you play Warhammer on the table, actual miniature game, you will roll dice. But there's a lot of steps in Warhammer where you're rolling to attack, then you're rolling to hit, then you're rolling to wound, and then your opponent is rolling to save from those wounds. And there's a number of dice steps involved in the complete Warhammer package. Whereas this one, it's you roll, check if you have any, hit symbols, and then your opponent rolls, checks if they have any defense symbols, and then you pair off basically. Yeah, I had more hits, or I got a critical, you didn't block any criticals, so I'm successful. It does X amount of damage. Right. So very, very simple boiled down sort of combat mechanics as there, and which can be pretty swingy. And in our this latest game uh, came down to some interesting die rolls that made it very exciting.
Hmm.
We woke my family up because it was about, I think, midnight, close to midnight when we ended, and I'll kind of get into like what happened. So we were in a this was round three, so it was the final round of the game, and Jordan was ahead by quite a bit. Like you had, I think, six glory points at this point, and I had three. So it was my round two didn't go well. I didn't score anything, and I went in to attack your leader and really needed to do some damage. And I had three dice and I had one reroll with those dice, and I could reroll one of the die, right? Well, you had two defense dice, and we roll, and I get one critical and then one hit, based on essentially what if you have extra models around the model you're attacking, more of the symbols on the dice will allow you to be successes on the hit. So I had one support hit and then one critical hit, and then the other was a miss. And you rolled at the same time, and I looked over, and you're like, yes, two critical successes, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
no,
And you need
that
a critical to beat a critical, basically. So
yeah, ties go to the attacker, in this sense. So like if I had one critical, you have to roll one critical to defend, right? Well, you rolled two criticals, and I only had one critical for the attack. So I went, wow. And it's a 1 in 6 chance on this dice. So I picked up the die that was the miss. And I was like, well, this is the one I have to re-roll, but not likely to get anything. And I just kind of tossed it up and wasn't really paying attention because it's like, there's no way, right? 16.6% chance, I think, is the number. And sure enough, critical roll right there, critical hit, and I won that attack or whatever, and we both kind of went, whoa! And we yelled up and kind of jumped from the table and high-fived and whatnot. And I asked my wife the next day, and she's like, I thought that table you were using was such a junky table. I thought like the legs collapsed. And you guys were screaming because your miniatures flew everywhere. So that's where her head went right away. It was like, oh,
Oh,
it's gonna come up steaming and pretty angry. But no, it was just yeah, we were just really excited, and the kids said too, "Oh yeah, we heard you at night, Daddy," kind of thing, right? So like,
oh, I
sorry
feel
about
bad
that, guys,
now.
but no, it was good. It was all it was but those are the types sort of the types of moments that you can get with the randomness of dice, is that you never know, and you go in really long odds, and then I mean the fact that you rolled two critical successes like that on two dice,
Yeah. Like
right?
I when I saw those, I thought I was pretty safe.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
And then you're like, well, I got to re-roll, and I was just like, it's yeah, I'm still pretty safe. Like
yeah,
he could roll the crit, and then you did.
yeah. So, and it was such a change in the sort of the ebb and flow of that combat, right? Or the game, really, essentially, because like I said, you were ahead
Yeah.
at that point, and then leaving your leader down on one health. It was like, I was holding back this one card, this one objective that was, like I said, if you kill the leader, it's 3 glory points. And by that time, because it was third round, we already had a bunch of people that were off the board. So it was like, that'll be easy. Plus, if I remove the leader, that's another model off the board.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just, yeah, it really came down to that die roll. And it went in my favor. And then after that, it was, as simple as kind of moving a one of my other rats, because of course I play the Skaven, which many of our listeners might know because that's my army in Age of Sigmar. Um, Excuse me. Oh, geez. And she says,
Very
yeah,
professional.
very, yeah. Oh, there we go. Um, but yeah. So I just moved in one other rat, and then it was just yeah. I had to pass
Hmm.
on one more hit for 2 damage, but by that time I had three rats around your one character, so it was like, okay, I think 75% of this dice is essentially hits, because the way the dice are set up, I kind of mentioned this, was you have one critical, and then you have two spots that are support spots, and then two faces that are double support. So if you have single supports, or if you have one other fighter around the enemy, then you can treat the single support as a success.
No, 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 no,
Is
no.
that too much?
That's too
They're
much,
more of a
man.
missing. Yeah.
There's so okay.
I felt like it was like really, really guaranteed. So maybe it happened better than I was expecting. Yeah.
Okay, so in this game, there are they put out
Oh yeah,
basically
that doesn't make any sense. You're right.
core packs, and then um and then with those core packs, they'll release a bunch of different war bands that you can buy just single war bands, which is really cool. They have a small number of models, sometimes not so small, but like definitely compared to, regular Warhammer, Age of Sigmar or whatever. Um, and there's basically two different types of attacking and two different types of saving. And depending on what warband you have, it's one or the other. So, for
Excuse me.
example, if you're playing like the Stormcast Eternals, if you know them, they're beefy, armored, big shields, big war hammers. That's their whole thing, right? So on the attack dice, two faces of those dice are hammers, and those are considered hits if you have a character that, uses a hammer. Yeah. So if you're watching on YouTube, Thomas was just holding up the symbol, and it's kind of the Warhammer. Um, but again, so if you're playing like Stormcast Eternals, that would be a hit, more than likely. But there's also one face of the die is swords. And if you're playing other kinds of characters, it's a sword, right? That's considered a hit and not the hammers. Then you've got a critical, which is, always a critical hit. And then you've got the two support sides. So one is it counts as a support if you have one other character adjacent to your target, like one other friendly character adjacent to your target. And then the other one counts as a hit if you have two friendly characters adjacent to the same target. So it's kind of like depending on what war band you're playing, your odds are better or worse. Because if you're playing something with hammers, your odds are better than if you're playing something that's swords.
I had
And
no
then if
idea.
you can you had no idea?
No. Which is this so weird for me because I'm always asking, what are the odds of this? How many cards are in
Right.
this deck of this? And those are
Yeah.
always the questions I ask. No idea in this one. I didn't know. So I
Wow.
happened to, yeah, have that character had a weapon on him that was Warhammers. So
Hmm.
without realizing it, I was using the best sort of weapon for I guess
Unbelievable.
the only miss on the die in that case, I had a 1 in 6 chance of if I rolled swords, I would have missed on his dice. Right now, he had two dice attacks, so I
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
you're essentially always fishing for those criticals is what you want because that's best case scenario, right? Because criticals can only be blocked by criticals, and then ties go to the attacker, right? So I think
Well,
not
I
exactly, I
no,
guess.
I think in the case of criticals, like a critical will cancel out a critical, and then but you had that one
Three
extra
dice.
hit,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Two
So,
criticals versus two criticals, so they canceled out, and then my one extra hit. Yeah, so
right.
I guess the attacker has more dice than the defender usually does. So if you can get hits on all the dice, you're in a
Hmm.
better position as the attacker, right? But it can be hard to do. Like Jordan just explained. If you're rolling dice on a war band that uses the swords, those war hammers are misses. So the two spots on the dice right away are misses. If you don't have any support, those two spots on the dice, the single and the double support, are misses as well. So that's four faces of the dice that are misses. One's going to be a crit and one's going to be a hit, right? So you got a 33% chance per die that you're going to roll, some sort of hit, whether it's a
Yep.
crit or a regular hit, right? And then playing the odds is you try and bring those support characters on so you can increase potency of those dice successes, right? But that's hard to do because, this game, depending on the warband you have too, like we mentioned, you have 4 turns during the round. So, if you have 5 models in your warband, one of those models probably isn't getting one or more of those models isn't getting activated, right?
Hmm.
And then if you want a character to attack sort of multiple times, well, then you have to say you have to move it into contact if it doesn't have a range. Um, so you have to move it to spend 1 turn to move it, and then spend remaining turns to hit with that character, right? That fighter. And
But
and
once they
that
move, they can't move again.
once they move, they can't move again. So there's risks to that as well because you move in, you can't attack this turn. Your opponent goes, well, I'm going to attack the one that just moved in. So they get the first attack on you at that point. And if they're successful, anytime you're successful with a hit, you can choose to push back the fighter that you're fighting, right? So say I move in and then you initiate combat the first time and you hit me, you can push me back a square, and now I can't move again this turn, so that was kind of a waste for me, right? So it's sort of it's you
Hmm.
have to really plan that out. You really want people to move in towards you and then take advantage of those attacks rather than vice versa. But sometimes, it comes down with what you're trying to do, and you just want the character there to provide support, or there maybe you have a character that's more likely to be attacked, so you move it up, and then hopefully they'll attack the other character, and then you're, the one that you want to attack. There's a lot that a lot of strategy that goes into that to a degree. So then it comes down to, okay, do I charge? Because that's the other main way of moving. On your charge, it's considered a super action where you can move and then attack. But then once you do that, that character can no longer be activated for the rest of the round, right? So
Well, they can't move or attack.
move or attack. Yeah, yeah. You can do some of the reactions and abilities on say upgrades, or even if it just, printed on their card.
Yeah. Or
You can
guard.
do those. Yeah. Yeah, or guard, yeah, which helps you in your defense step, right? Yeah, so those characters almost become kind of sitting ducks, but which is nice about the whole guard I guess ability that you can do. So that's another action you can take on your turn. But this one's so tricky because if you're not attacking, it almost feels like a waste of a turn because you only have those 4 turns. But again, it really depends on your warband because your warband in this case, and you were playing the Night Haunts, right? Is that?
Yeah, so you were playing Skittershank's Clawpack, is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
came in the Nethermaze set.
That's right. Yeah,
So we were playing by the Nethermaze rules because that's what we had. It's been updated since then.
yeah,
And
yeah,
actually, there's another one coming out called Ember Guard that is going to be the Skaven again.
yeah, yeah.
Skaven
Might have to
versus
pick that up.
Stormcast.
Perfect.
So,
Right up our alley. If we need more.
um, but yeah, my faction was Lady Harrow's Night Haunt. No, sorry, Lady Harrow's Mournflight. Yeah, it's a weird name, but they are of the Night Haunt overall faction.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they're banshees essentially. So they can fly through objects, move through opponents, and that's actually one of their inspire conditions. So when you meet an inspire condition, your character levels up essentially. So you flip the card over, and then they're gonna upgrade in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, so like and I found with your objectives especially, like you got one off fairly quickly in that first round. That was in regards to sort of those objective tokens. So your
Hmm.
objective, some of them at least that I saw, were based on the objective tokens. All of mine, I didn't have any cards in there, any of my objectives, like none of them related to objective markers. So they were all really combat focused. Whether they were like putting some sort of stagger conditions on your warband, or destroying things, or my warband comes with a couple minions that essentially are fodder. You throw in there to die and maybe tie stuff up or whatever. But there's a specific objective card that in a round, if you can get two successful hits with those minions, you get two glory points, because it's really unheard of for those minions to actually hit anything, right? Because typically their weapons do like one die, and it's like it's just the swords, right? So you have 1 in 6
Right.
chance of actually hitting. Um, so
Plus,
they're
you
yeah.
always leave them in the back.
And I always leave them in the back because, like, the main three fighters in my band have better weapons, but also have like reactions and abilities to put, either more damage out, or sort of these stagger tokens. And it's a interesting setup how they do this, because like each warband will also come with a rival deck, and those rival decks will give you a set um, collection of objective cards and power cards that work with that warband, right? If you get deeper into this game, you can, pick up cards that called universal cards that you kind of like flip in and out, and you can deck build for your warband. We haven't got into that because we only play this, once every year or something like that, right? Just
Yeah.
because of our collections at this point, right? So once you do that, you can upgrade those and change things out. But because of that, the Rivals deck really focuses you in sort of one way or a few ways of playing your war bands, right? And in my case, it's very heavily get out these stagger tokens, get rid of the leader, and every one of my characters is basically they inspire when the opponent's leader dies. So it's like, okay, that's the main focus of. I mean, the rat assassins, right? There's Skittershank's pack full of assassins. So I mean, it makes sense that they're trying to assassinate your leader, and that's how they would inspire. Which didn't happen to round three. So like I had no inspired rats till the last round. And it was like, okay, I've inspired now, and then I do nothing else for the last 2 rounds because there's nothing to do. Right? Okay, I can't kill this
Yeah.
other thing, so yeah, yeah. But yeah, I like this one. I every time we play it, I have fun. I find it really comes down to some of those dice roll. You can have best laid plans, and then just think the dice rolls don't go your way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. In this
it's
game, like, I, my three starting objectives nailed every single one of them. And I was like,
mhm.
this game's going great.
Yeah, it
And then
really was
round
for you. Yeah.
two, couldn't get a single one.
Yeah.
Round three, couldn't get a single one. Like the one of the three that I pulled in round three, like, was impossible for me to achieve. It was like have three, friendly units still alive, and then meet this condition. And I already had two were dead. So I'm like, well, not doing that one. And then one was you had to score it at the end phase, and or it might have been the end of the game even, but anyway, same thing for round three. And it was if you have more objectives scored than your opponent. And I was like, well, maybe, but I can't control this at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what sucked was if I had gone first in that round, I would have scored those objectives first, so that would have went off. But because you won the roll off, you went first, you scored more objectives, and then
Yeah.
mine didn't. It didn't. You had more than me, so then it didn't proc. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I
uh,
mean, I really dig this game. I have a lot of fun with it.
mhm.
And it's fun, and it's really nice because it's a small model count. It's easier to do the hobby stuff behind it, right? So we both had painted armies going in. So you snapped a picture of, that big roll at the end with our painted models. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. That looks so neat having, those full versus like if you're on YouTube right now and look at my big gray, shelf here, you can see how many miniatures I own that just aren't painted. These guys are black over in this corner here. They are painted. That's just my scheme here, but it looks terrible on camera. But I mean, it looks terrible anyways. But I'm happy with it. But yeah, like
At least there's
there's
some
a
paint on.
yeah, there's a lot of gray and plastic colors, right? But because it's a small model count, I had 5 models in this warband. I painted it up fairly quickly after getting this because I really wanted to, I wanted to paint some rats because they were the first rats I got, and then B, just it was nice to have them on the table painted as well, right? So that's
Yeah.
cool. I like that aspect. You can paint a warband, fairly quickly, um, and relatively not super difficult depending on how in depth you want to get with your painting.
Right, right.
And then yeah, if with the rival deck, it's fairly easy to run this game, but this isn't your massive strategy game, right? So last week we talked about Tales of the Arthurian Knights. I'd almost put this in sort of the same category as that, less narrative than that game, but very much random. And like you said, like you're beholden to the randomness of the card draws. If you draw garbage, you're not getting points. Um, and then die roll, uh, dice rolls. There we go, or die rolls, whatever. You're beholden to how those happen, right? So you roll poorly, and you can do your best to try and mitigate it. But that's difficult too because now you're trying to move multiple characters in, clump together so that someone's attacking you. But if someone doesn't attack you, then there's so many things out of your control that the mitigation is not a huge factor that you can really rely on. So those die rolls become okay. It is what it is. You rolled 2 crits. Likelihood is very low of that. I mean, yeah, doubles happen obviously, and everybody has rolled double sixes at some point in their gaming lives, right? And that's essentially what you did. But that can throw things off, right? Like I was going in, I'm throwing 3 dice, and only one spot on those dice are misses. I should be taking this, right? And then you roll, two crits, and I was lucky to roll the third dice into a crit, right? So
Yeah.
that kind of thing, it really came down. Had I not, I wouldn't have scored that last objective. That would have been 3 points less. And then it would have rolled over to another objective that I scored that I wouldn't have got. And plus the bounty from killing your leader. And by that point, it, it was the game would have been switched. You would have won based on your first round, which was really good for you. And then the last 2 rounds were not great. Were
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of junk rounds. And it was similar. Like I had an okay round the first round. You did better. Second round I got nothing, and then third round I had a great round because of the way combat went, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
keep that in mind when you're if
It,
you're thinking about this game for sure.
Now this game does have a big competitive scene. But I
Yeah,
think that the deck building part of it like comes way more into that. And there's, ban lists and that stuff constantly rotates. But what I don't get though is they changed the printing of the cards, like the backs of the cards, like
sure.
certainly
Yeah.
for Nethermaze, right? So did they was it like okay, now all the old cards aren't good anymore? Like you can't play with them anymore? I don't know how that works.
It's probably one of those things where you got to like put sleeves on them now. too, right? Like if you're going to a
Oh, that
tournament,
could be
right?
it.
Similar to like
Yeah.
how Magic the Gathering now is like, I think pretty sure if you go to a Magic tournament, it's like required to have sleeves.
Really?
Um, I don't know exactly, but like if you're going to one of these big tournaments, because they don't want you, if there's any sort of nick in your card or anything like that, you'll forfeit the match. You can get disqualified for that because there could be an argument that you've marked your cards in a way that you know what's coming up, right? And that gives you some sort of advantage. So sleeves is the best way to avoid automatic forfeits for doing that. And I suspect it would be almost a similar thing here. I don't
Hmm.
know if you would get forfeited in a tournament, and I don't know where these, tournaments are being held, but I'm sure at the Warhammer shops and stuff, they have a, competitive scene there for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I have fun every time we play this. It can be frustrating for sure when things don't go your way at all, and you're trying and trying and swinging and missing and
Right.
whatever, or drawing poor objectives and
Well,
blah
I'd
blah
really
blah.
like to. I have actually a fair number of war bands because I collected them because I wanted to paint the models, right?
Yes,
Like
yeah,
I wanted them for that side of the hobby. I haven't yet because, as longtime listeners would know, said this 1,000 times. I'm renovating my basement and I put everything away. Well, I'm like the basement's pretty close to done, but I still haven't I haven't finalized things, so I haven't got all my paints and brushes and stuff out yet. Um, but I miss it. I miss that side of the hobby.
yeah,
Uh, so this was kind of nice to, I don't know, get it back out, like the game back out. But I'd love to try, some of the factions that use the hammers and the shields, right? See what that's like. Maybe you roll fewer dice, but
true,
more
yeah.
more sides of the dice are successes. Like, it's interesting how they can, balance things that way. And then, I mean, the cards, it's just we'll only ever just play rival decks. We're never gonna like do the deck build thing, I don't think.
Yeah. I went through them last night with my kids actually. We were just going through them and I'm like, okay, I could see these cards and it'd be cool to kind of like swap these ones out. But then I was like, why? Why bother? Like it's not going to make a huge difference. I honestly I thought that my rival deck had too many upgrade cards. So I was like, if I can remove some upgrades, and then all the cards I picked out of the universal deck were upgrade cards. And I was like, forget it. Yeah, it's not worth it. There was like three cards that weren't upgrades, and I was like, I'm not gonna play around with this deck just to add in cards that are, three cards into the rival deck that I may not see in a game come up, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was yeah, it's a fun one, but I think you nailed it there. Like because the war bands are small, you can buy one just for whatever aspect of the hobby. If you're into the painting, you could do that. And because you're not painting, I'm not painting right now, right? So when you get more into painting and then you start posting pictures of your painted models to our group chats, and I'm like, okay, I should paint some more, right? And it encourages me to get painting. So this
Yeah.
gray hopefully will be less gray when you start to paint again, right?
Nice.
So, but yeah, and I really dig this one. I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun. I would definitely buy more warbands. And that extra set, who knows? Maybe that's something I should look at more because I know it comes with another Skaven one with a like Doom wheel too, which would be really neat in
Yeah,
this game,
yeah.
right? So Skaven have a lot of cool stuff, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Final thoughts though for me, yeah, this one's a win. I'd buy it again.
Yeah, it's middling for me.
Yeah,
60, 70%. But it's a good time.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And that wraps up another episode of the Current Plays podcast. Check us out next week on YouTube or your favorite podcast provider. But until then, good gaming and good night.
Good night, folks.